Right guard Nate Davis misses yet another practice, and we're talking about what that means for the offensive line going forward. Also, Matt Eberflus adds some detail on why Velus Jones is working with the running back crew, and we have a potential Chicago Bears trade for Azeez Ojulari. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today, guys. And unfortunately, we're here to talk yet again about Nate Davis missing yet another practice. So Nate Davis initially came out with practice, and it looks like he left out very early on. Practice is still going on, so maybe we'll get some word or something to say that he ends up coming back into practice. But as of right now, this just continues to add to the disappointment around Nate Davis and his overall signing with the Chicago Bears. Me, C-Dub, and Bobby talked about it a lot yesterday, and that Nate Davis, when he was giving that deal, that 3-year, $30 million deal, it wasn't a deal that too many people really blinked at because of how Nate Davis did perform in the NFL before coming to the Chicago Bears. But unfortunately, he's just between an inability to be on the football field when we need him, and then when he was on the football field, it really didn't look all that good. It just sucks that yet again we're talking about Nate Davis again being limited to start off practice today and then exiting during the team periods of practice. And this is just what's becoming the story of Nate Davis. And while we're looking at Hard Knocks and things like that, I wonder if that's something that they pick up on Hard Knocks. How to get it together. We can't not have the lights. But if they eventually get into having a story around Nate Davis and his inability to stay healthy, because Nate Davis can definitely help this team. And when you look at Matt Eberflus's message that he sent towards Nate Davis yesterday, which we talked about, like, it was a very clear indication, right? And when he said that, you want to have guys out there, and it's not just about the guard position, but to me, like I said before, if you have to say something and you are giving a speech and you have to end up saying, hey, but this isn't just about Nate Davis, to me that says that you are directing this, well, not just at guard. This still means to me that you are talking about the right guard position and the fact that we just have a starting caliber guard there that just has not been able to perform since he's become a Chicago Bear. So hearing that Matt Eberflus is basically saying that if somebody else steps into that role and plays well in that role and they play at a level that they feel comfortable with them starting, you can't use the excuse of you're not losing your position because of injury. You can lose that position. Again, I'm going to read the quote directly. If a person's out for an extended period of time and the player that's in that position is playing very well at a starter level and doing a good job there, then you create the competition. You say, hey, there's a competition. People say you can't lose a job because of injury. I don't think that's true. I think if the guy that's playing there gives our team a good look and good benefit for him being in that position, then it's a competition. Or the other guy could take it over. That's not just at guard. That's at all positions. Sending a clear message to Nate Davis. Now, I'm not saying that Nate Davis is out there trying to get hurt, trying to be injured and whatever, but at the end of the day, the best ability that you can have, especially when it comes to sports, is availability. And if you're not available, it doesn't matter what you bring when you're on the football field. You're not there enough, right? That even goes to like Tevin Jenkins and his injury concerns. So overall, when you really look and break this down and how this training camp period is shaping up for Nate Davis is that, listen, Nate, you could be losing your position because of injury. Or I would say this, go far to say this, we need to ask this question as well. If Matt Eberflus is saying that he's comfortable creating the competition or saying that you can lose your job if the guy who steps into your spot at right guard plays at the level of a starter, then you can lose that job. My question is with as much as Nate Davis is out, if you're saying that the players who have been in there at that right guard position aren't playing at a starter level, then how concerned do we have to be, right? So it's a lot of things that this is all multi-layered when it comes down to it, and it adds to the fact of what my biggest concern is right now for the Chicago Bears team. It's not just the skill set. It's not Caleb Williams. It's not the defense. It's can this offensive line be healthy enough to be able to support the talent that we have on that offensive side of the ball? And so far, if we're looking at the results that we've gotten in training camp so far, there's a huge, big, red fucking question mark there that's evident, loud, and clear. And so, I hope this is just all training camp things. I hope this is just all chilling and waiting and just being protective over your assets and making sure that people don't get hurt in practice or whatever it is. But right now, the offensive line continues to be a question, and Nate Davis continues to be one of the biggest question marks on our biggest question position group. And so when you factor that all into something, Nate Davis, you could lose this job. And that's just what it is. He's not a threat to be cut. He's not going to be waived. I doubt he's going to be traded, but it is a threat that position could not be yours when the season starts and we're taking the field officially for the first time as a team. And we'll just see what that future brings for Nate Davis and what that has in store for him. And talking about players that also have something in store for them, let's move into the next topic, and that's Velus Jones. Velus, as I've been talking about, his path to make the final roster gets slimmer and slimmer every week that goes by, basically. Wide receiver room. He's not going to be factored into that wide receiver room. The kick returning game. He's already been listed as right? So a possible starter at punter, kick returner. But the fact is that he's not a clear-cut starter. The Bears don't feel quite yet being comfortable in calling that yet either, even on an unofficial depth chart. So that has led Velus Jones to start being used at the running back position, which we heard yesterday. We heard it earlier in training camp as well. But today, we got a little bit more detail on the thought process behind using Velus Jones at the running back room. Matt Eberflus saying this. We feel that because of the versatility of the talent and the skill sets that he offers our offense, it's another way to have a weapon back there. Hopefully that grows into something that's offensive coordinator Shane Waldron and the offensive staff just being creative, being able to maximize our talent on our roster. So that's good to see him back there. And so this is now the newest possibility and route that Velus Jones can go to making the official roster for the Chicago Bears. Can he be used as a weapon? And that may, because listen, the kick returning game, maybe that's a wash. Let's say that the Bears do look at that and say between DeAndre Carter, Dante Pettis, Velus Jones, they feel comfortable if any of those guys returning kicks. Ian Willer, the undrafted free agent, also who's a kick return specialist, has been injured, but he can be used in the running back game as well. The thing that may be able to create separation between these players is where else can we use them and how versatile can they be in some of the areas if we need to go to them. Not saying that it's going to be a big part of the offensive game plan week in and week out to use Velus Jones, but if he can create a dynamic there to where you can use him and he can be effective in some of those lineups, that's something that the Bears are right to try to explore, to try to find if they can find any type of wrinkle or extra angle that gives them a little bit of an edge in certain scenarios to add some versatility to catch a defense off guard. Now, the results of Velus Jones at running back have been a mixed bag. We know that he has the speed, right? That's not the question, but there's a very different skill set that's needed as a running back. Now, some of that is overlapped as a wide receiver as far as once you get the ball, understanding the angles and things that you can take to get a little bit more yards on each one. And with also the doubt around Travis Homer, Ian Willer, these guys have not been healthy. You're right to take a shot and to take a look at a guy who has potential speed to be game breaking. Like we've talked about Velus Jones and his speed potentially being a game breaking speed, but it comes down to you can't just be fast in the NFL and it work out for you. You have to have some skills there as well, and that's something that we'll see. Now we'll see if the Bears go to Velus in these preseason games at running back, but it just adds to another thing that it just continues to be that just continues to highlight how slim of a chance right now that Velus Jones has to make the Bears' final roster. And so we'll see. I know there are some people that are more confident on it than others, and the reasons why people are confident, they're valid reasons, right? You can understand why you would think that Velus Jones could be used as a receiver, could be used. And people keep talking about Velus Jones as a Cordell Patterson. Here's the thing. How many next Jordans have we heard about that actually turned into that, right? When you make the blanket comparisons, it's not just about the skill set. It's also about how you use that skill set and the caliber of player you are. So while Velus does have the overall potential of being a positionless type player that can be used in a lot of areas, you also got to have that has to come with refined skill and IQ, right? Not to say that Velus is a stupid person in life. I'm not saying that, but you have to be able to utilize the skill sets that you have to the utmost of your ability, especially if you want to be a positionless player in 2024 in the NFL. So that's a big question on if Velus is going to make this final 53-man roster. Depending on who you talk about, which insider, which person at training camp, you get a different answer every time. But I think it does say a lot that the Bears are trying to find something for Velus because If they didn't see some type of way that he can contribute to this team, we wouldn't hear about him at all. And so we'll see how the story unfolds for Velus. I still sit in a mixed bag when it comes to Velus Jones. I would love for the Bears to have that as we are modernizing this offense. I would love for us to have the positionless player, the type of player that you see, the Cordell Pattersons, the Deebo Samuels. Right? I would love to have one of those guys on the Chicago Bears roster because that just adds so much fluidity to your offense that you can get so creative with that, and not gimmicky creative, but actually creative in something that can impact games using the way that Deebo Samuel's used, the way that Cordell Patterson is used. Those are things that sometimes change drives for the Chicago Bears. They change, for their respective teams. They change the momentum as well. They get some extra touchdowns because the defense doesn't know what could happen when you line up a Deebo Samuel in weird spots. Is he going to run it? Is he going to catch it? What's going to happen there? So I would love for the Bears to have that guy, whether that's Velus Jones or somebody in the future. I would love for the team to have that. But you can't keep trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Eventually, sometimes you just have to realize it ain't going to work. Now, going into your third year in the NFL, you already came in as an older rookie, right? You were almost, 27, I think, Velus Jones is, only 3 years into the NFL. That runway that you have is very slim, my boy. You got to find a way and an angle to make it in. Hopefully this is a wake-up call for Velus as well. Hopefully this also shows the faith that some of this coaching staff has in Velus, that they are trying him out at different spots. But at some point, if this does not work out, if Velus at running back, if Velus at returner is not working out, considering that the wide receiver part of the game for him is gone. That's done. We got 5 wide receivers, all ahead of Velus Jones, maybe even 6 on that depth chart. The running back room is deep as well, with having 3 running backs, 2 of those which are competing for the running back 2 position. But then you look at just the gimmick, the flexibility aspect of it. Let's hope. I would love for Velus to be one of those stories that we talk about and say, hey, you remember the doubt that we had around Velus Jones? He sure fixed that doubt that we had around him, didn't he? I would love for that to be the case, but you got to show and prove, because potential ain't never won shit. Potential ain't won nothing. The realization of that potential is what gets you places. And let's hope that Velus starts realizing some of that potential that he has, because it's still there. Let's see if we can get it. But with that said, we got an interesting trade scenario for the Chicago Bears that I want to talk about, mainly because it kind of solves a lot of things going on with the Bears while also adding some flexibility going forward into the future. So this one actually comes from Seth Walder of ESPN, in which he talked about how the Bears can get a dynamic edge in here to pair with Montez Sweat while coming off a player that doesn't seem like he's likely to make the final roster. I love this. It's a 3-team trade. Those you don't see a whole hell of a lot in the NFL. So because of that, this deal probably isn't going to happen. But let's get into the deal itself and why I like the player in the deal, and we'll talk about that. So in this deal, it's a 3-team trade between the Bears, the Giants, and the Saints. In this, the Chicago Bears receive Azeez Ojulari, and they get him, from the Giants. Larry Borom goes to the New Orleans Saints in this move, and then the Saints send a 2025 5th-round pick back to the Giants. Now, why would this work? Seth Walder explained it as this: the Bears, who are rightfully trying to win right away, behind rookie quarterback Caleb Williams, will be converting Borom into another player who can help their starting lineup rather than taking on draft capital. That player would be Ojulari. Ojulari's right. I said it right. Ojulari, who was pushed into the role of third pass rusher on the Giants after they traded for Brian Burns earlier this offseason. Ojulari has shown flashes as a pro, but his career has been marred by injury, and he has played 18 regular season games over the past 2 seasons. He recorded 8 sacks in his rookie campaign, but only 7.5 combined over the past 2 seasons. Ojulari's 14% pass rush win rate at edge is a little below the 16% average at the position, though he flashed 21% at edge in an abbreviated 2020 campaign. So, this is, when you look at Ojulari and what he brings, he's 24 years old, 6'3", 240 pounds, and this is a guy that you can bring in while you're waiting on like Austin Booker to develop things like that, in which Ojulari could move back to being that third edge for you, which with Eric Washington, you're going to get a lot more snaps being the third edge rusher than what you're going to get in most NFL teams, which is an added benefit there. But you look at this guy, he has that raw potential. 8 sacks his rookie year, playing all 17 games. Then in 2022, he only played 7 games, but he got 5.5 sacks in 7 games. Now, last year, he did play 11 games, only 2.5 sacks in those 11 games. but he was injured. Even in some of those games he played, he was playing injured. Ojulari would present an interesting one of those prove it deals that Ryan Poles is so great at. Now, that hasn't always worked out to our benefit. N'Keal Harry didn't work out. Chase Claypool wasn't really a prove it deal, but he didn't work out in the sign for the Bears either. But this is a calculated risk. We've talked about how Larry Borom is probably going to get cut. He has a $3 million cap hit. If he's waived, it saves the Bears $3 million because his dead cap money is only $30,000. So because of that, you can take a calculated risk at a player that is at a position of need for you, only has 1 year. He becomes an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. His contract's only $1.5 million, so even you still save a little bit on that deal from if you do trade Larry Borom for him, and you're getting Larry Borom for him. Did I just rhyme a little bit? Yeah, I did a little bit. But if you do trade Larry Borom to acquire Ojulari, that gives you some added flexibility at a position that you may not need. Now, with the way that the offensive line's shaking up, maybe you don't want to give up Larry Borom, right? And that could be a case for another day. But we've talked about how the business aspect of football may be one of the reasons why Borom is waived. In this case, you don't even have to waive him. You're trading him. You're not giving up any type of draft assets, which you know the Bears do covet and they may need to use in those trenches heavy next offseason. So Ojulari brings something that I wouldn't mind having on the Chicago Bears. This is a high upside, low risk really move if you're only trading Larry Borom for him, because at that point, it becomes, if he doesn't work out, you wash your hands with it at the end of the season. You haven't lost any of your own draft capital. You're at that point able to go out and get another edge, or hope that Austin Booker has excelled at a rate by the end of that season that you feel confident rolling with him, right? And DeMarcus Walker going out and getting another guy. So I like what this does for the competition as well at that edge position. I think that brings a lot for the Chicago Bears, and they need that at a position of need. So let me know what you guys think on this down below, right? When you look at Azeez, I believe is how you pronounce it. I feel confident. Ojulari, it's one of the two. Nonetheless, I'm hitting on one of those. I'm batting 50%. But with that said, like, this is a guy who was picked in the second round. He was picked 50 overall. So this is a guy that still has, at 24 years old, I'm not mad at the upside. And I do think that you can retain him in the offseason for not that much money, considering the injuries that he's had the last 2 years. His youth, so maybe he's willing to sign a shorter 2-year deal, but that gives you some added depth. And like I said, while he's kind of been pushed out to that third pass rusher with New York, this is a guy that if he comes to the Chicago Bears, with the way that Eric Washington likes rotating that defensive line, he's still going to get a lot more snaps than what he would get being a third edge rusher on any other team. But you guys can let me know what you think on that down below. All right, before we go, we got one voicemail from Jay. This one's about Hard Knocks. We're going to go ahead and play that now.
Yo, just Jay right here, man. You know I have to call and give a recap for episode 1. You already know. Now, I will say this. The first thing that caught my attention, beyond Nick Saban actually saying some really cool shit, was the Caleb Williams introduction with the Alan Parsons Project music. Let's just start there. When they bless you like that, you gotta do good. You know what I mean? Like, nigga, I'm in Chicago. I'm here. You know what I mean? I'm a Western bus stop away, nigga. I could take that motherfucker right down, take it down Western to be at the United Center in 30 minutes or less. I'm here. So it's like, when you play that song, you gotta show up and show out. And I ain't saying you gotta be CJ Stroud. I ain't saying that, but we gotta look at you and be like, oh yeah, something is there. Something is there and it's undeniable. So, you know what I mean? When your name get blessed like that, you gotta go off. Another thing I noticed was Matt Eberflus' confidence all throughout this episode. You know, it's almost like he already had a conversation with management, with the owners, like, bro, you ain't gonna lose your job next year. If we do bad, you're not gonna lose your job. You know, we're gonna continue to give you some time, especially if you continue to do what you did last year with the defense, how y'all ended the year. Continue to do that. Build this offense with Caleb. Don't worry about if it's a good year, bad year, because, like, the way he's, you know, moving around and stuff, like, I hated watching his interviews, and I could tell in the training camp interviews that we've been seeing how his confidence is going up. But I used to hate his interviews, how he would always go, oh, everything's good. You know, this is good. The offense is good. The defense is going well. We're right on track for this round. And it's like, we're losing every game. Nigga, what are you saying that we're not seeing? So, like, now we're getting a more confident, honest, Eberflus, and I'm liking it. That was another thing I noticed. Again, Nick Saban talking about how much of a defensive dog Eberflus was. That kind of gets me, you know, going as a Bears fan, because, hey, you know, we are, again, used to a good defensive team, and to know that Nick Saban trusts his mind and his instinct, it does give me a little bit of reassurance, even though, you know, we've seen what he can do last year. there was always that question in the air, but I think a cosign like Nick Saban is always going to be a good thing. Overall, crazy good episode. I'm excited to see what the next episode is going to be like. Again, we could talk about Caleb all day. Caleb absolutely did what he was supposed to do, but I really want to know what you guys think about the episode. Chicago up, go down.
Listen, y'all know Steve O's my brother. I love that guy. But I do not agree with the fact that of how upset he was at the Alan Parsons project being used for Michael Jordan. For Caleb Williams. I'm not mad at it. When you look at what was said in that, if somebody just told you, oh yeah, they played the Bulls music for Caleb Williams, you may look at that and say, what? But when you look at what the story they were telling and talking about the excitement that Caleb Williams brings and the next chance of having a great athlete in Chicago is on Caleb Williams right now, it made sense to the narrative story that they were telling. So I don't agree with Steve-O on that one, but we're brothers. We ain't always going to agree on everything. Now, as far as the last part of what you said, I love the confidence that Matt Eberflus has had, and you could tell it seems like there's a difference even in the way that he's operating around the players and taking a little bit more risk, right? Feeling more confident. And maybe that's just us having this insight on Hard Knocks, but I completely agree that it does seem like Matt Eberflus is holding himself with a bit more confidence. And I don't know if they've necessarily told him, like, yeah, you're going to come back after your 2-year deal, but I do think that he feels very confident in the skill level of this team. And keep in mind, they over doubled their wins from the first season to the second season. So, while we talk about Matt Eberflus like everything's been a fail because of how certain things have went, like he's done what he's done. He's made this team better from when he got here till now. And so, the defense, he got a defense that really fits his scheme right now. Having Javon Dexter step up at that 3 tech is going to be huge for his system. So all those things, he should have extreme confidence. But the Nick Saban being on that episode of Hard Knocks, to me, that just signifies this, is that's where we want to get to. We want to have that type of coach that talks with that type of reference, right? You just understand the difference. And when Nick Saban talks about football, and that's why you saw Matt Eberflus hanging on to every single word that he gave. Now we just got to see if we can get there and have a great team that really excels, and we finally get some playoff wins in here. But thank you for the time, y'all. You guys make sure you follow the show at Shy Bear Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.